All right, so on the Keystone Carnivore Podcast today, we have Kelly Troup from Revolution Wellness.
Yes.
Revolution Wellness. And you can see her on Instagram as well at Revolve Integrated.
Revel W Integrated, I guess is the easiest way to say it, probably.
Okay. So thanks for coming on the podcast today. Very glad to have you. Let's just start off basically talking about, we've been chatting back and forth on Instagram about keto, carnivore, health and wellness, lifestyle, fitness. Tell us a little bit about your background, your expertise in carnivore, keto, and low carb, and what made you get started in it.
I've been keto and low carb since about 2013. I was kind of a metabolic mess. So after I cleaned that up, I guess you could probably say that I was more meat-based at that point. Did some self-experimentation, ate a little more veggies, realized those did not agree with me well, had some bloating and indigestion, some issues, and then I kind of slid over to carnivore. And ever since then, been doing the research to see why this works, and I kind of find it to be the ideal diet, especially given the health issues I'm going through now. And so that's where I've been steady for at least the last 6 or 7 months. So.
Okay, excellent. Now I know we all have like a niche, whether that's carnivore for sports performance, helping illnesses, or injury prevention, or maybe anything autoimmune. Do you kind of focus on any one of those topics with carnivore?
Yeah, for me, it's been the gut health and the autoimmune. That's one of the things I try to reach out with people, is that we should really feel ideal on a carnivore diet, especially a nose to tail, because we're getting everything we need from our food. So something is still off, if we're getting breakouts or we're still getting some, residual bloating, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper. There's things like mold, or there's things like infections that are still causing that gut health issue that perhaps food itself cannot fix. And then, you need to round some antimicrobials through. And so that's what I push for, because we can feel so ideal eating carnivore that we sometimes just assume that that's just the way we are and we need to live that way. And I really think it's important to dig deeper.
So it sounds like, somebody looking to go on a plan like this, they kind of have to find, what works best for them.
Yeah, you always have to find out what works best for you. But if best isn't working, which I think both of us are kind of in the boat that, carnivore is the most nutrient dense diet, then definitely, don't be afraid to ask more questions about why it's not working.
Definitely. And with this approach, have you looked into like any lab values at all, such as cholesterol?
Yeah, in fact, right now I'm not the best representation of cholesterol. It's kind of why I've been on my rants with Instagram about it, is trying to get, information out there. Right now my cholesterol is about 500 and it's dense, and there's small, tiny particles instead of light and fluffy, which we know is kind of ideal. And the reason behind that is I have some underlying infections going on. I had a surgery a few years ago that I think is possibly to blame, and actually some bad drinking water, which is well water, which really sucks, because that should be the best, right? But anyway, so it's really high. And that was kind of one of the other reasons why I started over to carnivore, because I had some cholesterol markers pretty in depth, because my numbers are so high, telling me that these are dense, your numbers are high, you should go on medicine, and realizing that plant cholesterols were actually getting into my bloodstream. And the only time that really happens is with leaky gut. And I wasn't actually aware of that. That was something I started researching for myself. One of the markers was cetirizole, never heard of it. Did some research, found out it was a plant cholesterol, that it doesn't belong in your bloodstream, and the only way they can get there is through loose junctions, or what we know as leaky gut. And I had actually had these same labs drawn when I had the metabolic issues before I started keto, and those markers weren't there. So these doctors were pushing medicine, saying that I'm genetically just this hyper absorber, which means that I absorb more from dietary, which is usually about 20%, than, the average person does. And I was like, well, why would that be? And I had actually done the 23andMe as well, and it had said that I had no family history of cholesterol, familiar cholesterol issues. So it just didn't make sense, which made me dig deeper. And that's when I realized that the plants were actually not helping my autoimmune issues, were not helping my trying to heal leaky gut, because it was actually just causing more agitation.
So it definitely sounds like you've done a lot of research on that, especially like with plants, and it sounds like they can also kind of impair the absorption of other like critical nutrients too.
Yeah, they actually fight for your nutrients, versus spots, like, or, stuff like that. So you have to watch, and like lectins can actually, it's a stressor. So it can actually loosen the junctions in your intestines and cause that leaky gut. Zonulin can be caused by stress. It can be caused by wheat, but plants are a stressor. So that's one of the main ones that I think if you eat it in high quantities, can make things go wrong.
Yeah, and I definitely hear a lot of good things, like when somebody goes on a carnivore diet, their ability to absorb like iron, zinc, and magnesium, and kind of like for what I focus on is more like the sports performance, athletic, injury prevention side. Um, those nutrients get absorbed a little bit more, and maybe that's why people feel or do become stronger.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of people have a better chance gaining muscle and faster results with a carnivore diet, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you did mention before something about you went through the Primal Coaching, Mark Sisson's certification program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did it a few years ago. After I had all the success with eating, just low carb and keto and my metabolic issues, I enrolled to be a Primal Health Coach, mostly so I could help other people that are going through this. I actually do ultrasound for a living, and I ran into a lot of people that were struggling with metabolic disease and polycystic ovaries and infertility. And I'm like, good Lord, these people, all they're doing is putting them on birth control. And it was a really easy fix, just changing the way I ate. So I really did enjoy his program. I think that he's definitely on the right track. He encourages movement and, simple exercises to get results, and really makes it a very non-stressful approach to a lifestyle. And I think that a lot of people are so focused on diets and not lifestyle. So I think there's definitely a lot of positive from his approach to things.
Definitely. And yeah, that was one of the first books that I ever picked up as far as related to like a higher fat protocol. And he had a lot of good things in, maybe it was his first book, I don't know, but talking about like the myths that were told in the United States, stay away from cholesterol, stay away from high fat, especially saturated fat too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely fat's taken a lot of blame for, what the processed foods have done. I think a real big one, even, wheat and bread and grains, everybody definitely is against, or starting to become against. But honestly, I think vegetable oils almost top that one. I think in moderation, maybe some people could tolerate a sandwich once in a while, especially if it was prepared like our ancestors would have, fermented and sprouted and all that good stuff. Unfortunately, now it's just the things that are available are not the same that our ancestors had. They make bread in an hour. They don't ferment it. They don't sprout it. It's not even the original grain. Like we hear heirloom when farmers are planting things. That the heirlooms are hard to find and they're expensive. So meat is like the cheapest option that is as close to what our ancestors ate that's out there.
Definitely. And then you also spoke a little bit earlier to, we were chatting about Paul Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you learned from that.
So far, I just really like the way that he breaks things down. Because what he really focuses on too is kind of, the myths that are out there. Polyphenols, we hear a ton about all these positive things that plants do for us. And then when you read it, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that could be a positive, but there's also a negative, and almost like looking at them as they're like a pharmaceutical drug, like, oh, you could get this, and this benefit if you ate 6 cups of it, but you're also going to have this, and this negative. And I really like that breakdown because I do have, people in my life that are, primarily plant-based, and to have that knowledge to be able to back up, like, well, this is why, like, have you ever looked at it this way? Or, it's kind of a little bit more research to give us a little bit of an edge with our, way of life, because people just are so quick to shut it out, even though it seems way more natural. I mean, at least in my outlook, I mean, I have like a little bit of a native background, and I'm like, I always tell people, I'm like, did you see them planting or painting pictures of plants on a rock? No, it's meat. Did they eat plants, perhaps when it was scarce? Yeah, maybe, but it definitely wasn't an everyday thing. And I think, like, he kind of points out that if you lose your favorite toy, your mom says, well, where'd you find it last? And if you look in history, where was our health the best? Is obviously way back, before the civilization kind of gathered up and focused on grains.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy too. And one of the other things is I went to a conference. It was kind of like a low carb conference, free conference at a hospital a couple weeks ago down in York, Pennsylvania. Dr. Bixler, he's a orthopedic surgeon, just like Dr. Sean Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about, like, okay, your standard American diet, how it's kind of like a wet floor, and there are people mopping the floor, and the sink's turned on in the back, but it's overflowing. And all we're really doing nowadays is just mopping up that floor. We're not turning that faucet off.
Yeah, I was definitely jealous. I think I saw that you went to that conference. I actually started following that position afterwards, because the more local people that, I can find that are on my page or on our page, or that I can incorporate into this tribe, I absolutely love to connect with. So
Definitely. Yeah. And he does, I think, focus more on like that orthopedic side, injury prevention, as well as related to sports too.
yeah, I mean, protein has all your aminos in it,
Yeah.
your amino acids. Whenever you see somebody at the gym, they're supplementing amino acids. I'm like, just go eat a steak, But
And they
so
think it has, yeah.
it's definitely known that, you need those for healing and fast muscle growth and all that stuff. So
Yeah. And a lot of people think that it has to be complicated now.
yeah, that's one thing I love about carnivore is it really is just simple, I've talked about it before. I don't track what I eat. I don't think about it. I kind of have a general idea of what I want to get in during the week, and I just eat what I want to eat. And I actually really enjoy all of it. People are so afraid that it's so simple that A, you're doing it wrong, or B, they're going to get bored. But that never happens. I'm
Yeah,
always excited for the next meal. So
definitely. You mentioned that also you had some interaction with people that did follow a vegan, vegetarian diet. Um, and you may also have some friends and family that aren't, fully carnivore or keto yet. What would be your advice to someone, kind of who's skeptical about this, looking to dig in a little bit deeper to this?
to learn more. I think everybody's just so set on their ways, they're afraid to look a little bit deeper. I may be carnivore, but I'm not opposed to reading something that a vegan wrote, because I really think in this field, we've learned everything there is to learn. So I'm always one to say, okay, I'll read that and I'll make an educated decision about it. So I think if you're stuck in that mindset where you're totally closed off, it is really hard to reach somebody. But if I can get them to just even make baby steps and feel better, like if they're vegan and I'm like, have you ever looked into a mussel? Like, you've got a lot of zinc and a lot of nutrients in mussels. And if that's a seafood and I can get you a little more vegetarian, and you start to see improvement, maybe you'll trust me a little bit more with the deeper stuff, So that's kind of what I do with people that are a little more stubborn. My stepdad was dealing with some metabolic issues, and he's very old school, like, he wanted his sandwich for balls.
Is your microphone still on?
Yeah, it's still on. Did you lose me there?
Yeah, just for about like 5 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, that's okay. No worries. Okay, yeah. So just kind of easing into things if you are, if you're still coming from that standard American diet. I know a lot of people still are. I kind of use a little bit more of an aggressive approach, I would say. But that's definitely interesting to learn that. Everybody's a little bit different, and you have to take an approach a little bit different to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's the important of like screening your clientele, talking to them and seeing where they're at. Because there's some people, that are like you or like I that just jump for it and are ready to go. And if they feel like crap for a week, they know that better's coming. But I think the ones that are a little bit more skeptical, that are maybe more plant-based or never really had any diet work for them, I think if, I move them a little bit slower and they don't feel like it's such a drastic jump and then they feel like crap and want to quit, that I get better results with those people. So.
Okay, excellent. And then probably one last question I have. What do you think the future of the carnivore community is?
I think we're going to grow. I think people are going to come on board. One of the biggest, battles that I had is I knew a lot of, nutritional therapy practitioners that are very plant-based that kind of fought me in the beginning too. And I just kept saying, N+1, this works and I'm having results. And I think the more that we have results and that show that this isn't a fad and we're backing it up with blood work and we're backing it up with healing some underlying issues, I think that maybe it'll be a little bit more understood. I'd really like to see plants take a decline. Like, I'm not saying never have an avocado if you don't love one, but I'm saying like you shouldn't be like your plate shouldn't be 90% plants and 10% meat. I think it definitely needs to be the other way around.
Definitely.
Yeah.
More of a whole food, animal-based approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think nose to tail is important too. I know some people get away with just the steak and salt, but I think we utilized every part of the animal, and I wouldn't like to see that go away. I think that's better for, the earth. I think it's better for the animal. I think it's better for us. So I definitely would like to see more of that community growing. I think it's funny, in other cultures, they eat brain and it's normal, like in Europe. And then here we're like, oh my God, the kids saw the beef tongue the one day and they were, making all kinds of faces, and it's delicious,
Definitely. So is there anything else, or anything that you'd like anybody to know, where to find you, like on your Instagram page or YouTube channel, anything like that?
They can find me on Instagram. That's primarily where I'm at. And then I'm here to help. I realize a lot of people right now financially are struggling, and I don't ever want that to stop somebody from reaching out to a coach. I'm here to work for you. I want to help people more than I want to make money. Obviously, I got bills to pay, but it's more about I want to follow my passion. So
definitely. All right, Kelly. Well, thanks for being a guest on the podcast today. If you have any other information on your Instagram channel, I'll be sure to share that. Anything that you want others to know. And I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future.
Absolutely. I love following your stuff. So we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Kelly.
Absolutely.